Well, welcome to Round. Hello, I'm Vishvapani and thank you for joining me. This is a session in my series Mindful Meditation Basics, and in today's practice we're going to be learning something called breathing space practice. It's kind of a shortened form of meditation, but that makes it really easy to use and integrate with your day. So we'd love to hear from you. And please use the chat to share where do you find mindful moments in your day. So some people have already done that. And what do we have? The first sip of coffee, not even the coffee as a whole, just the first sip, being at the traffic lights. Okay, yes, a pause, gardening, walking the dog. I'll second that one. And while stretching, looking at the moon, someone says, well, on a clear night. So, making space in our lives is really important. There's a quote that I like by the composer Mozart. And someone asked Mozart, what's the most important part of your music? And he replied, it's not the notes, it's the silence between the notes. So think about that. It's not the notes, it's the silence between the notes. Do you know the Chinese landscapes done with ink, and often you have this big landscape. There are mountains and forests and sky, and then there's just this tiny little figure making their way down the path. And that's the way to live. The sense of being part of something much bigger. And we need to give ourselves space to have that. Not just cram in as much experience, as much stimulation, as much stuff as we can. And in our culture, in modern culture, you need to make an effort to do that. That needs to be a practice, because there's so many things saying, oh, just have a look at this. Here's a notification. Something to keep us on the go all the time. So congratulations for making this space for meditation. Yeah, I mean, it's not to be taken for granted. Actually, it's quite rare and it's special. And I value making space, and I need to make an effort, even though I'm a meditation teacher, that can get quite busy because there's all the other things I do. There's a family to look after, all of those things. So I need to remember to stop in the course of a day as events become a cascade and your mind starts to get busier and busier. You start to get a bit frazzled. And that's what the breathing space is all about. So I'd like to do a breathing space, and we're going to do it for 3 minutes, and I'm going to time it. Now, you don't need to do a big setup, because the idea is that this is a practice that you might do when you're out and about. You can do it several times through the day. It's not a special practice. So however you are, just find a way to sit, and we'll just get started. So here we are in a breathing space. Just bring our awareness to the present moment. Now, it's a good idea to close your eyes if that feels okay. You can always keep your eyes open, resting on the carpet or the floor or something like that. But to start off with, we're arriving. We're bringing awareness to being here. So what do we notice? The body and what's vivid in the body. Let's say the feet touching the floor. How does that feel? And feeling the whole body, feeling the body rising up. And what else? How am I today? What's going on in my emotions? What about my thoughts? Where are my thoughts? So just bringing awareness into the present moment. And take a breath. So arriving. And now what we'll do is we'll gather our awareness around the breath. So just feeling the breath moving in the body. Gathering our awareness, our presence. Noticing the tummy rising and falling. And when thoughts come, we just bring ourselves back to the breath, to the sensations of the tummy. And now we're going to expand our awareness. Let our awareness spread out through the body. So feeling the whole body now, from the feet to the head. And bringing back into our awareness, how am I? How am I right now? Is there anything in the body that feels tense or tight? We can just imagine that the breath is flowing into that tense, tight area. Tuning in, checking in, slowing down, and then starting to make a transition as we bring this short period of breathing space practice to a close. Okay, so that was a breathing space, and there were actually 3 stages. The first stage is just becoming aware. So that's A for awareness. Then maybe that's about a minute. It depends how much time you have and what you want. Then the second stage is gathering. So gathering our attention together. And we do that by having a focus for our attention. We use the breath and we gather ourselves by becoming really aware of the breath. That's G for gathering. And then lastly, we expand, we extend our awareness through the body again. And that's a broader sort of awareness. And we can notice how we're feeling, that sort of thing. So we're checking in again, but with a little bit more quietness. So this is something that we can do. It's very effective. Perhaps you found that. Actually, there's an even shorter version of this, which we call the mindful minute. Now, this one I will time quite carefully. What I'd like us to do is, again, close our eyes, and I'm not going to say anything. I'd just like you to count the number. I'll say when we're going to start. I'd like you to count the number of breaths that you do between when I say start and when I say stop. Okay? So start, and as we breathe in, we just count 1 after the out breath, and then 2 after the next out breath, and so on. So we're just seeing how many times we count. It's how many times we breathe in the course of a minute, breathing completely naturally. And stop. So how many breaths were there? Maybe it was 10, 12, 13, 14. Everyone has their own rhythm of breathing. Let's say it was 12 breaths. Well, then next time you want to take a mindful minute, all you do is follow your breath for a count of 12, and that will take a minute. And if you do that regularly through the day, then it's not very difficult. It's not a big period of time to spend, but you'll only be spending a minute each time you do it. So there's something even shorter than the breathing space or the mindful minute, and that's what we call a mindful breath. So I had a surgeon, a heart surgeon, on a course that I did, and he was actually very senior, and he taught lots of people. And at the end of the course, he said, well, I got one thing from this course. I don't know if he got anything else. I got one thing from the course, and that is the mindful second. So what he said was, there he would be in surgery, operating on someone, and something would go wrong. Everything would kick off. You know how it is on the TV, and clamps, nurse, this, that. Anyway, he said that what he'd learned to do as a result of the course was to take a breath. And even though it's a life and death situation, he said that was the right thing to do, because if you make the wrong decision by acting immediately, instantly, then you can be spending hours trying to put it right again. You're better off taking a pause, making the right decision. Okay? So that's the mindful moment, or the mindful breath. Just take that slight moment to bring in awareness. Okay, so hopefully you're getting the idea that this practice is very flexible. We've done it 3 minutes, 1 minute, and then just one breath. The principle is creating pauses. So in the course of a day, our lives get busier and busier, a whole cascade of events. And what we need to do is to create breaks in that, to come back, particularly if we have time at the start of the day, perhaps, to do a longer period of meditation. But even if we don't, have times to come back, feel our feet on the floor, take a breath, take some time, and reset. That's really helpful, particularly if we're prone to something like stress. Okay, so we're now going to use the structure of the breathing space that we looked at earlier for a slightly longer period of meditation. This will be maybe 8 minutes, something like that, 8 or 9 minutes. But do you remember the structure, which was awareness, gathering, expanding? AGE spells age, if you're not sure. And we'll use that for a longer period. Yes? So again, the first 3 or 4 minutes will be just becoming aware. Then we'll have some time when we're gathering our attention around the breath, and then we'll be expanding our awareness in this subtler way. Okay, so I'll do a little bit more of a setup around posture now. So find a way to sit that's going to be comfortable, stable, but also upright. Yeah? So let your weight rest back, rest firmly on whatever you're sitting on. If you're sitting on a stool like this or a chair, hard chairs are good. Not sitting right back on your chair because you tend to go to sleep. So coming forward, feeling alert and upright. And just let the weight sink. We're now going to go into the structure that I was talking about. So we'll start with awareness. And just feeling the body. Bringing our awareness into this moment and sensing the body. The body resting on the floor. Maybe we can feel the contact points. That's maybe the feet, perhaps the knees. If you're sitting like me, the bottom, certainly. The hands. You might be lying down. So wherever it is that your body rests and the weight is taken, there's a slightly more vivid sensation there. So just taking our awareness to that and sensing it, not thinking about it. And feeling the whole height of the body. And then tuning in to how we are. How am I today? Maybe just connecting with ourselves with a sense of warmth, of greeting. Like we're meeting a good friend in greeting ourselves. Now we'll gather our attention. So perhaps taking a slightly deeper breath, just noticing where the breath moves in the body, where the movement's most vivid. So I'm going to suggest that we take the tummy as our focus. tongue is quite low down in the body, so it's good to get us out of our heads into the core of the body. All that stuff we find ourselves thinking about, forget about it. It can all wait. Let it go. This is a time to be gathered, centered. That's how we experience space. Let it go. Now, what we'll find is the thoughts keep coming in and pulling us back, and they keep telling us how important they are. Think about me, think about this. So we just need to say, not now. This is important. We gather our attention by settling the mind on the breath. That's all we need to be okay in this moment. This is the space between the notes. That lets everything breathe. Our whole lives. Just enjoy it. And then letting our awareness expand through the body. Feeling the whole body once again. Is there anything in the body that feels tense or tight? We could just imagine or sense that the breath is flowing into that tense or tight area. It's just natural that we get tension. It just happens. So breathing in, maybe letting go as we breathe out. Let it go. And expanding our awareness through the body as a whole. Seeing if we can have a holistic sense of the whole body. From the head to the toes. Wholly present. Emotionally present. Here, now. And inhabiting the space of the room. Maybe noticing sounds. Sensing the space around us. The light in the room. Even with our eyes closed. When we're ready, we can just gently let our eyes open a little, if they have been closed, and take in the sights, what's around us. Then we're gradually going to bring the practice to a close just by moving the body. That makes a difference. We move from stillness to motion. Fingers, toes maybe. Roll your shoulders, neck a little. Whatever you feel you need to do. So, just pausing, absorbing, reflecting. Okay. So we've got some questions. Do these shortened breath practices count as meditation? I've read that a 20-minute session is needed to receive benefits, ideally twice a day. So there's no simple answer to that question. But it can help to distinguish between meditation and mindfulness. So I would say that a meditation practice to get benefits needs to be at least 10 minutes long, really, to be properly effective. I say that because research has been done that shows that. I know there are organizations that have that 20-minute twice a day model, but the research that I've seen says you need to do at least 10 minutes. The reason is that it takes about 10 minutes to really settle down fully. And then the rest of it, you can then get on with really engaging with the practice. Now, personally, I meditate for a lot more than 10 minutes. 10 minutes is just getting started. I meditate for much longer than that. But as well as that, there are these short practices, and you can intersperse them in the day, and they bring mindfulness in. They're a way of bringing in greater awareness to the day. Do you see what I mean? So it's not meditation or short practices. Ideally, it's both. But I think really it's a very powerful practice to be aiming to bring awareness into the whole of our lives, and not just to rely on a practice of meditation, bringing awareness in. So another question. When my restless mind and fidgety body take over, is there some advice to settle myself? Okay, so the first thing I'd say is listen to what your restless mind is saying. And listen to the feeling of it. Restlessness is one kind of feeling. Is it anxious? Is it speedy? Or is it just not wanting to settle? Fidgety is a really good word. That's quite evocative. I get what you're saying there. It helps to recognize the emotional tone, the feeling of what's going on, and give that space. And the other thing is just to do the practice, to keep on coming back, keep on bringing the mind back to the breath, if that's the object of concentration. Sit still. That's how we settle down. And it might feel uncomfortable. That's okay. This is the process of gradually settling down. And it might be that you need to actually do this for longer, because just a short practice, you may not get past that fidgety bit, but eventually you will start to settle down. So, next question. How do you know what is the best beginner posture to use? Sitting, lying down, or kneeling? Well, to start with, as a beginner, I would say sit in a chair. That's usually the best posture for people starting off. Not a soft sofa, something more like a dining room chair. And then experiment with the other practices. So kneeling is great, but you need a stool like I have. Lying down, well, that can be very relaxing, but it's also conducive to falling asleep, so you need to make a choice. Experiment. If you do a lot of yoga, then you may be able to sit perfectly cross-legged. I can't. So I would say, if in doubt, sit on a chair. Really encourage you to do these practices through the day. They're flexible, so you can bring a practice in. If you get to the end of a day, typically, and you're frazzled, then just insert these into the course of the day, and it will make a difference. I promise you. So I teach a lot of people in lots of contexts, and the breathing space is so helpful. I'm going to finish with a quotation from someone called Rollo May, who was a psychotherapist, and a writer about psychotherapy. And this is what he says about pausing and spaces. Freedom is the capacity to pause in the face of stimuli from many directions at once. And in this pause, to throw one's weight towards this response rather than that one. The pause is especially important for freedom, the freedom of being. For it is in the pause that we experience the context out of which freedom comes. In the pause, we wonder, reflect, sense awe, and conceive of eternity. So, a pause is not just an empty space. Thank you for sharing this time, and please continue to explore your meditation practice with us. Check out our daily live meditations at round.glass or on our app. Have a great day, and give yourself space.